Alright, hi everyone. So let's talk about whether you should use other people's assets in your artwork. So this is something I've received like a fair few questions about in the past. Usually, of course, coming from like newcomers to 3D artwork who don't really know what the right way is. Like, should you be trying to acquire as many assets as you can within like good license terms and then use that for your artwork? Or should you be exploring like the core skills to create your own asset libraries? So I thought I'd just discuss that a little bit in this video just to have it down on record. So if someone asks that again, I can just send them this video. The short answer is it really doesn't matter that much whether you use other people's assets. It just depends on what you're using it for, and you should always consider like the very important aspects of providing credit where it's necessary, understanding the licensing, and also not intentionally misleading the expectations of people that may be looking at your work. So what do I mean about that last bit, not intentionally misleading people? Well, so this is the bit where kind of like portfolios comes into question. Imagine that you're a 3D artist and you're trying to put together a lovely portfolio on ArtStation, and you're making all these beautiful art pieces, but they are like 90% comprised of other people's assets. They may come from like all different types of locations, all different types of sources, and the render is like beautiful, but it's 90% someone else's work. You've just done the composition. Well, someone coming along and looking at your profile may look at that and think, wow, this person made all of this content. That's amazing. Look at their skill level. And you may or may not feel a desire to correct them on that opinion, because I know there are a lot of artists out there that do feel quite insecure and they want people to believe that the stuff they've put out is entirely made by them. But, you know, if you know that's not true, then that's not something you should be putting out there, and it will bite you in the back further into the future. Because, for example, if you get hired on the basis of you making amazing artworks that were just quickly slapped together without you having any fundamental knowledge of how they were made or having the fundamental skills to make them in the first place, then when it comes to putting those skills to the test, you're going to fail. So the first point of order here is that whenever you're using someone else's artistic content or assets, always be aware of making it clear where necessary and when required, if it has to be done by a license, that the content is not yours. So for example, I know there are like some lighting specific artists on like ArtStation and other platforms that just do lighting work. And obviously the environments that they're using to do the lighting work are not made by them because they're just a lighting artist. So they need to be very clear when they're putting this work out there to say, look, this is me doing my lighting work on this person's content. Okay, so credit is always important. Understanding the licenses, the commercial use licenses, whether the Creative Commons license that the content you're using requires any attribution meaning credit, saying that you have to say where it's come from. So that always needs to be kept in mind. But now that that point of the conversation is out the way, what about just generally, like if you're not trying to apply for work, if you're not like, you know, putting it up in a place where it's going to be misleading people? Well, I think there's a lot of creative liberation that can be felt in using other people's assets. It really does save you a lot of time. It allows you to focus on the fun parts of the creation process. So you can skip out like a majority of the frustration which comes from like all of the hours and hours of setup and like hand modeling and crafting and material building and stuff like that. Now those are very, very important and essential parts of the process, but they're not the fun parts, at least not for everyone. Like there are a lot of people that do enjoy like the very meticulous process of modeling things, but they're sociopaths. Like not seriously. And like it's very attractive, the idea of just like collecting a massive collection of all these assets just so you can use them and just like make as much cool fun stuff as you can. And I know there are a lot of artists which sit in that category, and I kind of envy them a bit because I don't really let myself do that, because like I have a kind of reputation to maintain, and I also sell products and projects. So I have this attitude where if I want something, like if I want a type or a bundle of assets, I should make it myself, because then I can market it and sell that and make money back on the time. So that attitude I have is very helpful in the way of making products, but it's not very helpful in the way of feeling like I can express myself, because obviously a lot of projects that I want to make in terms of like art projects don't get made because the time investment to make those assets is just too large. So I don't end up doing that. Therefore I don't end up making the artwork, and that's a bit of a shame. So I feel like there are a lot of benefits in using other assets, but again, you run the risk of neglecting fundamental skills. This is where the conversation of kit bashing comes in as well, because kit bashing is obviously taking a bunch of like model packs and assets and slapping them together to make something more interesting. You would usually consider this being done for like hard surface modeling, and there are a lot of artists out there that make content almost exclusively using kit bashing techniques for the modeling. Some of these artists are like massive on social media, and you can point them out out pretty easily as well. The thing is, even though the artwork looks like really nice and kind of well color graded and highly detailed from a distance, if you look very, very closely, you can start to identify some of the repeating elements in their work. And that kind of becomes a bit of a disappointment, because when you notice that, like, it kind of removes that initial magic from looking at the artwork, and you think, oh yeah, like, I know they're like a super popular artist and everything, but I can start to see like the repeating elements where they're just like copy pasting everything. So that raises the point that there is a extra skill in being able to take like these repeating assets that you're using and mix them up in ways which make them seem non-repeating. So being able to mask those seam lines, if you want to think about it that way, even though they're not really seams, but do you get what I mean? It's like masking the repetition to make something that is repeating seem non-repeating. So I think hidden away in the actual act of using like other people's assets to make your work are a bundle of other skills which may not be immediately obvious. These are more like compositional and management skills, environment building skills, and stuff like that. It's not to say that you can't develop these skills without using other people's assets, of course, because I highly encourage people to generate their own asset libraries. So over time, developing your own asset bundles of art styles and art projects that you want to explore, and then keeping hold of all of that so it's not being lost in like old blend files that you might delete or that might die on an old hard drive one day. So actually keeping hold of everything you make, throwing it into an asset library so you can re-access it in the future. Once you've built up an asset library of your own, then you can like very easily explore those same skill sets of, you know, masking repetitive actions using your own content. So I think it depends on like how much enjoyment you want to get out of your artwork, how much of the frustrating process you want to avoid, also whether or not you want to kind of like encourage yourself to develop new things and new content and test out those skill sets in making these bundles for people. And I say people there because it's not just yourself, like these are also money-making ventures if you want them to be. And I don't think regular people realize that, or regular artists. Like if you're making content for yourself, you can, like, it doesn't cost you anything to make that available to other people for like a small price tag as well. Like there's no reason not to do that if you want to make a bit of money on the side. So I don't feel like it's necessarily right or wrong to be using other people's assets in your work. Like most of it just comes down to, again, like licensing terms, not misleading people, etc. And the licensing is a really important one to remember, because I feel like there are a lot of people that don't really understand that. Again, like there's been a lot of stuff going on recently with especially the NFT space and now the AI space regarding copyright. There are a lot of lines which don't really seem black or white, but copyright is usually a very like common sense thing to understand. If you're using someone else's content, then okay, well, do you know if you have the right to use that? If yes, then you can continue following the terms which are provided. If no, then don't make any assumptions. Don't assume that you can use something for a commercial project if you don't have the right to do that. But like if it's not explicitly stated, then don't make an assumption. And that's a problem that we bumped into on my channel a little while back as well, again with the NFT stuff, people making assumptions. Because no license is provided, they assume they can use it for everything, and that's not the case. Unless you're provided very specific terms, very explicitly stated commercial use rights, then you can't use it commercially. So yes, I just thought I'd, you know, make that little discussion topic just to clear it up, and, you know, hopefully that gives people some confidence that were otherwise feeling a bit insecure about using other people's assets. And like, again, I think the final point for me would be, though it's fun, try and encourage yourself to make your own asset libraries, because I feel like you could learn a lot of extra skills in that. You'd be doing like artistic studies, and I feel like you could just learn so much more. It might take more time, and again, like I said, it's a bit of a shame that I don't get to just have more fun with making artwork, but it's part of the burden I've manually put on myself. And I have thought somewhat recently about, you know, trying to subvert that burden and just have fun and maybe show some of my experiments, and maybe I will do that. But, you know, for now, this is the stance that I'm taking. So if you made it to the end, the emoji for this video is going to be a package, because it kind of makes sense for like asset packages. So if you put that in the comments, I will see who made it this far. So thanks for watching, everyone. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.